Hi everyone, Renee here again at Swan Lake Christmas Hill Nature Sanctuary in Victoria, British Columbia. Since everyone seemed to enjoy our Snake Day live feed so much, we thought we'd try it again with Bird Day. So our naturalist, Kayleen and Erica, will be again sharing lots of fun facts with you, but this time about birds. I'll be behind the scenes again, ready to answer any of your questions. And I would like to just take a moment to thank our funding partners, which include the Victoria Natural History Society and TELUS, and they help us put on our programs and are helping us put on new ways of reaching our community just like this. So without further ado, welcome to Bird Day.
Hi everyone!
Hi everyone! My name is Erica.
And I'm Kayleen.
And we are going to bring Bird Day to you. So we are going to talk a lot about different species today, from those birds we see in the water, to the bushes, to the tall trees and up in the sky. There's a lot of different kinds of birds. But before we dive into these different animals, we're going to talk a little bit about why they're important. Now, birds are incredibly important, and there's such an amazing variety of these animals. Now, we see them here at Swan Lake all year round, and we have some local residents that do stick around here even in the winter, but we also see a lot of migratory species. And having a place here like Swan Lake, this beautiful wetland, is really, really important for these animals. And so they play a really key role in our ecosystem, right? A lot of them are omnivores, so they eat plants, and they also eat meat. And they play a really key role in that food chain. But also we have lots of carnivores, raptors, they only eat meat. And that's really amazing to keep insect and rodent populations down. Kayleen, would you like to talk a little bit more about these animals?
I would. On top of playing a really key role in the food chains and the food webs around here at Swan Lake, there are some birds like turkey vultures that can also play a really crucial role in disease control. If we didn't have creatures like turkey vultures, then there could be dead bodies piling up all sorts of different places. These turkey vultures will keep things a lot healthier, and they've actually got so many amazing adaptations to keep themselves healthy while they eat the flesh that they eat. On top of that, these birds in our area here can be really important for plants as well. There are some birds, like hummingbirds, who act as pollinators, and there's plenty of birds around here who will act to disperse seeds around to new areas, helping them grow in a wide variety of new places. We're quite lucky to have them.
Absolutely, thanks Kayleen. And birds rely on each other too. Birds like woodpeckers are pileated, and our hairy woodpeckers build nesting cavities in trees for other birds to nest. So they also play a key role for each other in that sense as well. So we're going to talk about these birds in a few different sections. We're going to talk a little bit about waterfowl, birds that we see down by the lake and by the ocean. We're going to talk a bit about how birds even fly, talk about their bone structures, their feathers. We're going to talk about songbirds, birds you'll hear when you're out for walks, or maybe you'll see at your feeder. And finally, we're going to end with raptors, so the large carnivore birds and all the unique species of those that we have around here. So we're going to dive into waterfowl. So here at Swan Lake, I often get asked, hey, you work at Swan Lake, where are the swans? And yes, sometimes we do have swans here. We think that maybe Swan Lake is named after our trumpeter swans, which is a species right here. Now, we have trumpeter swans that visit here, usually in the spring or fall, once in a while, but they're not here all year round. These animals are a migratory species, so they're either flying south for food or north to nest. And once in a while, we're lucky and they're here. Now, these birds are the largest birds in waterfowl that we have here in North America. These birds can get up to 25 pounds and 6 feet in length in their wings, so they're massive, massive birds. Now, we also have another species, not too common out here on the West Coast, but the mute swan. This is also a very large swan. This is kind of your more ballet, fairy tale swan, and it did come over from Europe, and it was brought over here because it is so exquisite. Now, often the mute swans are found more over on the East Coast, and unfortunately they've actually been pretty destructive. They're incredible eaters, and with their long, long necks, they'll dive deep below the water and reach for plant material. Now, both the trumpeter swan and the mute swan eat a lot of plants as well, but they will consume small fish and amphibians, and maybe even some mammals. So yes, I work at Swan Lake. we're lucky to be here, but we don't have too many swans here, just once in a while. We do have a lot of other kinds of waterfowl though. You might see lots of ducks here. You'll see definitely our mallard ducks. Now, here we have the male and the female. The female has beautiful camouflage feathers to help her hide. She sits on a nest for almost 28 days, and so she has these camouflage feathers to defend herself from predators. And she is the only one that takes care of the ducklings. The male, he's just there to look pretty and does his job, but he does not help with raising the young. And this is the big difference between ducks and geese. We also have Canada geese here at Swan Lake. Now, if you take a look at a flock of Canada geese, some are male, some are female. Honestly, I can't tell the difference. All right, so that is because the male and the female goose, they actually help to raise the young. The female, she'll sit on the nest while the male stands around guarding her and the nest, and they both take care of the kids, the little goslings. So they kind of share that parent role. Here at Swan Lake, we also have diving ducks over here. So this is one that we have here. This is called the harlequin duck. Often I see harlequin ducks, these beautiful animals just painted on. They're absolutely gorgeous. I see them down by the ocean, more or less. Not too much here. We also have a species of buffleheads, which is another kind of diving duck. Now these ducks are different than mallards, which are the dabblers. Mallards, they're a little bit larger in their body, and they'll tuck their beak under the water to find little plants and insects to eat. But diving ducks, they are built to dive deep below the water with their big webbed feet, and their slender bodies will get them going all the way down into the water to find more food underneath. So those are a few different kinds of waterfowl we have here. We also have some oddities as well. We have one called the American coot, which I honestly like to call the chicken of the wetland. They are very sweet and they're very important here, but they have really interesting feet. Now these feet help them to walk on muddy areas, but also of course helps them to swim. And another bird that we have here at Swan Lake, not called typically a waterfowl. This is a shorebird, but of course our great blue herons. We're really fortunate here at Swan Lake to have an amazing abundance of these incredible animals, and they are amazing carnivores. Great blue herons only eat meat, but they'll eat everything from fish to insects to reptiles, amphibians, small mammals if they get the chance. Now they have these fantastic long legs for wading deep into the water, just silently stalking their prey. Now I have seen herons hunt many times before, sometimes during the daytime and sometimes also at night. They have amazing eyesight to also hunt in dim light, but I've never seen a heron miss. They have incredible precision and accuracy in their hunting styles. So those are a few of the species that you might see here around Swan Lake and along the shore. Kayleen is now going to talk a little bit about how birds fly. It's pretty fantastic. What a mystery.
Excellent. Alrighty, my friends, for our next little discussion on talking about how birds actually fly, we've got a skeleton of a pigeon to talk about a little bit. Now, looking just at a skeleton of a bird, you will notice that a lot of the bones inside are very, very similar to the ones that we have. Some of these bones are actually the exact same ones that we can find in our own bodies. But some of the bones have been modified in different ways to help these birds be better at flying. You can notice that in some parts of the body, like the pelvis and the chest, that a lot of the bones that are separate in our own bodies have been fused together in birds to allow for more rigidity and more structure when they are flying. One of the things I love to point out is this large bone right at the bottom there. That is their sternum. Now that is such a large surface area for muscular attachment. The muscles around the chest area of a bird are so abundant that they can actually make up about 1/3 of the entire body weight of a single bird. Those muscles need to be so large and so powerful to be able to let that bird fly. To put it into perspective for you, if I had pectoral muscles that were 1/3 my own body weight, that would be about 50 pounds. I would be able to bench press so much more than I currently can. It would be amazing. So phenomenal. On top of having that really amazing muscular attachment, if you look at their head, you'll notice that birds do not have teeth. It is kind of one of those things that most people don't think of too much when they think of birds, but this is a way to reduce their overall body mass, and as a result, they actually just have a very different digestive system than we do to counteract that lack of teeth that they have. Getting rid of the teeth allows them to be a lot lighter and being able to fly quite more successfully. These birds also, in some parts of their bones, will have pneumatic or hollow bones. Inside of those bones will be little tiny air sacs to make sure that the rest of their body and all of those powerful, powerful muscles are getting all of the oxygen they need, as well as taking all of the carbon dioxide out of those muscles to keep them functioning at peak performance. It really is absolutely phenomenal. Their lungs, surprisingly enough, are actually not that large. They're not that heavy compared to the rest of their body and compared to their muscles. In most birds, the lungs only take up about 2 to 5% of their entire body volume, which is a lot less than most people would expect, considering that they need so much oxygen flowing to their muscles. They're very, very powerful muscles. The very last thing I want to touch on is actually the feathers and the wings of birds. I would imagine if humans one day just sprouted some wings, we probably wouldn't be able to fly very well. Not just because we don't have the right type of bones and the right type of muscles, but I don't know about you, Erica. I've never been taught how to fly. I have never practiced with feathers before, although I would love to. With birds, they have feathers that they have learned to fly with since they were very, very young, and those feathers allow them to uplift into the air. They allow them to contour to their body, and on top of that, they will actually help insulate the birds from the cold as well as from the heat. They will help protect their eyes and nose and mouth from any dirt or any other sediment that could get in, and they are fantastic for coloration, whether it be camouflage like those female mallard ducks, or some birds have amazing displays of color to help them impress potential mates. It really is quite phenomenal, and I have to say, I'm a little bit jealous of birds sometimes with all of these neat features that they have. Excellent. I think you're gonna meet some new birds in just a second, some of the songbirds of the area.
Great, thanks Kayleen. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our songbird populations. Now some of these birds you have heard before, I promise. Kayleen's going to play one right away. And I think you've heard this before, especially in the early morning. All right. If you guessed American robin, you're right. The American robin is a really popular bird around here, very common. It's the largest bird in the thrush family. Very recognizable by the yellow beak and the large red breast. Now these birds, of course, also have their iconic, beautiful blue, robin's blue eggs. And if you have ever seen a robin's nest before, recognize how beautifully circular that is. Robins make their nest out of lots of different grasses and reeds and mud. And I want to show you how they make that. What they'll do is the female, she'll go collect some grasses or reeds in her mouth. She'll fly back over to her nest and weave it in, and then she does this little dance. It goes like this. And she'll fluff up her back feather and keep going up back and forth, like this. I know, I can't believe I just did that. Didn't I either? But that is how they make their nests. Birds have amazing techniques in making these beautiful nests. And nests that are made for their young, right? A lot of birds do not make nests unless they are laying their eggs. The bush tit is another fantastic example. This little hanging sock, this little sleeping bag, camouflages beautifully into the tree. And the male and female, they'll work on this together, make this nest out of lichen and moss, different hair, and another key feature in a lot of different nests is actually spider webs. They'll use spider webs to hold their whole nest together. And I'll show you how it'll hang. So here it goes, it'll hang up in the tree, and they'll make a little hole down here, and this is where the babies will hatch, just into this little sock. Can you imagine being squished in this sleeping bag with your siblings, and just beautifully hides into the tree like that. They have a really nice variety of nests around here. The last one is the chickadee, and Kayleen's going to play for you what the chestnut-backed chickadee sounds like. Now these are pretty common birds that you'll see around the feeder as well. They look a lot different than your other, your black-capped chickadees that are up near the Rockies and up north. But these little birds are so delightful, so playful. They make their nests with a lot of fur. They keep it really, really nice and cozy. And they have, just a lot of different kinds of fur from different animals that they'll find. So this is a key animal that I often see at feeders. Now, speaking of feeders, another animal that I see often, of course, is our amazing hummingbirds. Now, here on Vancouver Island, we're lucky to have a nice variety of hummingbirds. Our two main ones are the Anna's hummingbird. Both of these pictures I have here are males. This is the Anna's hummingbird up here with the beautiful bright pink fuchsia plumage. And then below is our Rufous hummingbird. Now, the Rufous hummingbird is a species that is not here all year round. And actually, I think they've just come back here. In the wintertime, they actually go south. These tiny little birds, the Rufous, they'll go all the way from Alaska all the way down to Mexico. For their size, they go on the longest migration of any other bird. And they're absolutely tiny. But here we also have the Anna's hummingbird, and they usually stay around here all year round. But they also need to be fed. They, thankfully, here on the coast, they'll be able to find enough nectar from flowers. They also eat a lot of insects to keep up that fat in the wintertime. But you can also help them out by having a feeder too. If you do have a hummingbird feeder though, we ask that you just maintain it. Hummingbirds have a fantastic memory, and if they'll come back next year looking for your feeder. If you do have a feeder, please clean it regularly, making sure they're checking for mold, and fill it with the appropriate amount of sugar water. Don't use honey, don't use brown sugar, use straight white sugar, 1 part sugar to 4 parts water. Now I want to show you the little nest of the hummingbird. This is a tiny little nest. I'll put my hand right here for size. It is so petite. And the female, she will weave, again with lichen and moss, she'll weave this beautiful little cup for her babies. She'll usually lay about 2 broods or 2 clutches of eggs a year, and always usually about 2. Sometimes 1, sometimes 3 eggs, but usually almost 2. And they're about the size of Tic Tacs. All right, and they're nicely surrounded by that lichen, moss, and spider webs. And I'm curious if you can see this from home, but I want to show you, this is the male Anna's and the female. And I want to just go back and forth, see if you can see beautiful iridescent pink feathers. Now the female, she does have a little bit underneath her chin as well, but they're pretty hard to see. She thankfully has these fantastic camouflage colors to keep her safe while she's sitting on her nest. Now finally, just a couple more key birds that you'll have definitely probably have heard before, and maybe you've seen in this area. One of our most common birds that we have here is, of course, the red-winged blackbird. And I think you've probably heard this one before. This is one of my favorite calls here at Swan Lake. Here in the early spring, and it's just fantastic. These beautiful, beautiful feathers, the plumage, I like to talk with my students, can really understand why this bird is called the red-winged blackbird. Us scientists like to get really creative once in a while. Also, we have the northern flicker, which is one of our woodpeckers here on the coast, along with the pileated and the hairy and downy, and sapsuckers. We have a really beautiful variety of woodpeckers here. This one's a little bit interesting though, with the beautiful orange plumage and the speckled breast. She's absolutely gorgeous. And this woodpecker doesn't so much peck into trees, but actually to the ground. This is an ant eater, and it loves to eat lots of little creatures on the ground. And you might hear this woodpecker a lot right now. They're definitely making a ruckus. It is mating season, and I think you've probably have heard some of these calls before. Quite iconic, and I know for some it could be a little bit annoying after a while. Also, these birds they'll really make their call quite clear if they're tapping on your side of your house that can get a little bit annoying as well. The last one I want to talk about here is our beautiful Stellar's jay, a beautiful, incredible bird, and you might have heard this call as well. Now, often I hear these birds, especially in the fall, and that is because, especially last year, they had a really good, season up in the mountains during the summer. We had our Stellar's jay are doing really well here on the coast, and yes, up in the mountains they did really well. They had lots of eggs and lots of babies, and then we heard them like a lot in the fall down here. When it gets cold, there's not as much food up in the mountains. They come down here to the valleys. And here on the coast, and they can be loud. They like to make themselves quite known. All right, if you want to learn more about songbirds, and especially migratory species, I would ask you to reach out to our amazing partners. That's the Rocky Point Bird Observatory. They have an amazing wealth of knowledge and fantastic volunteers and fantastic researchers that do a lot of information about our migratory species. So if you're interested about learning more about songbirds, reach out to Rocky Point Bird Observatory. All right, Kayleen's going to take it away with our raptors. Who finish off today?
Excellent, excellent. Alrighty, my friends, the last group of birds that we are going to be delving into for today's live broadcast are the raptors. There are three big things that are sharp, that make a raptor a raptor. The first thing is sharp eyesight. Raptors have absolutely incredible eyesight, and you'll notice on this eagle skull that they have this large bony ring inside as well. That actually helps hold their massive eyes in place so that those eyes do not fall out of their head. The downside to that is that instead of being able to move their eyes and look left or right, or roll their eyes even if you have any teenagers at home, these birds have to move their entire head to be able to look around instead. So number one is a very, very sharp sense of eyesight. The second thing, I'm sure you can guess from this eagle skull, this bald eagle skull, is a very, very sharp beak. The beaks of raptors are used to help tear their food apart and to help swallow it. The last sharp thing that raptors have in common is incredibly sharp talons. The talons are actually one of the key features that make a raptor because all raptors hunt with their feet. They do not hunt with their beak like a great blue heron would. They always hunt with their feet. And you can see that they just have incredible, incredible talons. This foot is from a red-tailed hawk. Very, very good. Excellent. Now, one thing I always like to tell people when we are talking about the raptors that live here on Vancouver Island is the bald eagle and how their claim to fame isn't always as wonderful as it could be. I'm sure some of you at home have seen bald eagles portrayed in maybe Western movies or action movies, anything like that, and whenever you hear them, it's a beautiful, loud, piercing call. That's actually not what a bald eagle sounds like at all. Erica is going to play for you the sound that a bald eagle actually makes. I find this sound to be quite beautiful myself. I hear it, it always reminds me of coastal ecosystems, which is actually where we see bald eagles a lot, is hunting for fish. Every once in a while we'll see them at Swan Lake hunting for things like small birds, maybe even seagulls if we're really in for quite a big show. Instead, the sound that is often used in place of the actual bald eagle call is that of a red-tailed hawk. And Erica's going to play you that one. You might recognize it. To me, that is a sound that inspires a lot more fear and a lot more ferocity than that sound that the bald eagle makes. Now, to be fair, they are both incredible predators, incredible raptors in their own right, and we don't need to pit them against each other. They're wonderful, each in their own way. Another hawk that we see quite frequently here at Swan Lake is the Cooper's hawk. You can notice, again, just those beautiful, beautiful sharp talons, and underneath their wings, they're beautiful camouflage colors to help them hide from prey while they are hunting. Moving on from the diurnal or the daytime raptors, we're going to talk a little bit about owls as well. These ones have a special place in my heart. They're my favorite raptors, I have to be honest. And my all-time favorite raptor is the one that we see really, really often here at Swan Lake, the barred owl. This one also has one of the most charismatic and memorable bird calls. If you've heard it before, you might recognize this sound. With this owl call, I always think it sounds a little bit like the owl is saying, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you?" And that is a sound that I always love to listen to. It always gets me so excited to be able to hear that sound. And yes, this is a bird that we can see quite frequently here at Swan Lake. The most often time that I actually see owls is during the daytime, which may seem a little bit strange, but the reason that I see them most often during the daytime is because that's when I'm out. That's when my eyes are working the best. That's when I'm wandering around the trails and using my eyesight to look around. Normally during the daytime, when I see owls, they are not out flying around. They are not hunting. They are sleeping in trees, trying to get their body nice and energized for the evening when they will actually come out and use that, again, incredible eyesight to start hunting for food. Another owl commonly found on Vancouver Island is the great horned owl. Their call is more of a Halloween owl call. You can hear a couple calling back to each other there. Excellent. One more owl that we are going to touch base with is probably the most adorable owl you can come across here on Vancouver Island. It is the northern saw-whet owl. I'm going to pick one up and you can actually have a look at its teensy tiny little feet. Very, very small talons, but do not let that fool you. This is still an incredibly effective predator. These owls, these very, very small northern saw-whet owls, are able to still actually go after quite a few different creatures as prey, potentially small mice, potentially really small birds, and they will actually go after insects as well. We've seen them hunt things like large moths, which I'm sure would make an absolutely delicious, tasty meal. The downside with being this small is that, unfortunately, you can also be prey for other animals as well, other raptors and other owls included. Sometimes the saw-whet owls will be hunted by creatures like the barred owl or the great horned owl as well. The last thing I'd like to show you is the northern saw-whet owl's wing. You can again just see incredible camouflaged colors on the top and on the bottom. And I'm gonna try flapping this for you. I know the sound isn't perfect, but even if you were here standing in front of me like Taylor is, you wouldn't be able to hear that wing at all. When owls fly, they have feathers set up in a way that they allow the air to go straight through the feathers so that they don't make any sound at all. If when owls flew around, they were super loud, like a goose or something like that, then all of their prey would be able to hear them coming and their prey would get out of the way and try and hide instead. That's why these owls have these incredible adaptations to help them be the very effective predators and raptors that they are. The last thing I'd like to say on the topic of raptors is that we would like to actually thank our partners, the Raptors, up in Duncan. We had hoped to have them here today for Bird Day. We always love partnering with them. They always bring such incredible creatures. I know last summer for Raptors Day, they brought a beautiful turkey vulture and a stunning little kestrel. I would encourage you to look them up on social media as well. I think they're doing lots of fun live things as well and little videos that you can check out if you'd like to learn more about these phenomenal little creatures. Excellent.
Thanks, Katie. Well, we've talked a lot about some different species here today. You might be wondering how you can help them. First of all birds need space. They need space to rest. They need space to eat and find food. They also need water, right? So shelter, food, and water. And places like Swan Lake are vital for lots of these species, especially migratory species that travel really long distances in search of food or in search of places to nest. They need places like wetlands like Swan Lake so they can find the food and the water and the shelter they need. But you can do your part as well. Having an area near your home or in your backyard, keeping it wild, having lots of shrubs and places for birds to hide, or finding materials to make a nest, that's really important too. Some of you also might have feeders, which is an amazing way for us to see birds up close, right? Especially our fantastic hummingbirds. I've talked a little bit about how it's important to keep those clean and make sure you have the right sugar and water balance in those. But also you might have seed feeders, and those are important for birds as well. Now, unfortunately, a lot of birds, they have a bit of a rough go. If you have a feeder near your home, it's fantastic for you to see them up close, but unfortunately, birds can't see the windows near your house. And so if you have seed feeders, I would encourage you to please keep them away, maybe in a tree in your yard, a place where you can still see them, maybe get a pair of binoculars, but it's a lot safer for them as well.
And somewhere that the squirrels can't get to. I know that a lot of the feeders I've seen are definitely populated by the squirrels as well.
Yeah.
One of the last things that we can do that you can all do at home is to want to learn more about these creatures. The more we care about these creatures, the more we learn, the more we appreciate them, the more that we as individuals are going to want to try and help them and try and educate other people around us to create safe, natural spaces, just like Erica was saying, for these amazing animals that we share our worlds with.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in with us today.
Thank you so much. We're going to pass it over to Renee, and she's going to tell you a little bit about how you can see birds and how you can identify them as well. Thanks, Renee.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much to Kayleen and Erica. Yes, before we sign off, luckily bird watching is something you can do in self-isolation and at home. You only need a few tools to help you out, a good pair of binoculars and some bird books or an app on your phone or tablet. So a few tips with binoculars. It helps to look with your eyes first and then raise your binoculars up. So I'm going to demonstrate. I'm looking out the window. I'm going to keep my eyes fixed and then blurring out the binoculars. That avoids having to do the whole hunting around with your binoculars. The second tip I'd like to share is please don't walk around with your binoculars, because once they're up here, you can't see around your peripheral vision and you might bump into someone. So just up and down. Now with your books, having just a basic idea of the size, the shape, the location will help narrow it down. And wonderfully, these apps have a lot of features where you can just select for those things. Also, you can just drop the pin on your location and see what birds are there. So please do enjoy birding from wherever you are. And I'd like to thank you again for watching. Please leave your comments or questions. We'd love to answer them when we can. And stay safe, everybody. Bye.